Well, hello again. So I thought that I would do a part two to why I walked away from the yoga community, why I left. It seems a little bit fitting for some current circumstances. I just got back home from being gone and she's happy to see me. So she's gonna be in the video. So I recently decided to sign up for okay. I recently decided to sign up for a yoga retreat, pretty much just to support my buddy. So a colleague of mine from the yoga community has been wanting to transition more so into teaching yoga and hosting retreats for a while. And I understand that that's a big leap. Like when I left, kind of doing a more, what would you call it? Not an office job, because I never had an office job, but when I kind of left the predictable to start my own business again and to actually start bringing on coaching clients. And then I built my little yoga tutorials, and I had been um, creating so much demand for me to teach that I'd finally just decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And it takes courage. It takes a leap of faith to decide to do that, right? And to like let that be your source of generating income. And so I want to support my friend for doing the same. And plus it was in Costa Rica, and that's a nation that I haven't traveled to. And I'm all about, checking out new countries. So it was double the reason to go. Like, my buddy is going to be hosting and this is a big deal to him, and I haven't been to this country. So needless to say, last minute I signed up for this retreat. Now he wasn't doing it solo, he was co-hosting it, first of all, and secondly, it wasn't like an independent thing. It was being piggybacked on a retreat center. Now I've done that where you host a retreat at a retreat center, and as a beginner host, it's much more comfortable because the retreat center offers a lot of activities to keep your students busy when you're not teaching them. So there's some comfort there, and usually they have like the vegetarian meals and the massages and just the detox programs. Like Thailand, that's what Thailand was like for me when I hosted Thailand. So I get why someone would want to utilize a retreat center. Given the current circumstances, it's a little bit, I don't know. It didn't turn out to be in my favor. But anyway, so I go on this retreat, and I only booked it 2 weeks before. And his co-host, very, very pushy woman, Like, I had invited a girlfriend of mine, and she was going to try to make it. So I had originally booked a double room, and literally as soon as I booked, this co-host of his messaged me. She emailed me, she called me, she texted me 3 times over the course of 3 days, wanting me to upgrade to the single room because it's just me. And I finally got back to her and I said, look, I'm waiting for a friend of mine to confirm if she's coming. My girlfriend decided she'd rather do Africa later with me. And so I was like, fine, whatever. So then the lady's like, great. So then I need to charge you an additional few $100 because it's just going to be you now. You're going to have to get a single room, not a double room. All right, fine, whatever. I mean, it was such an expensive retreat already, but I was like, whatever. So I knew going into this that I was probably not going to be doing a lot of the activities, a lot of the yoga classes. And even my buddy said he was so surprised that I signed up. And he's like, are you even going to come to class, Paige? Like, am I even going to see you? And I joked, and I was like, probably not. But, I figured at least for like the discussion stuff, maybe philosophy, pranayama, like I'd probably come to that. I'm kind of burnt down on asana, and I'd rather learn to surf, right? So whatever. So I get there, and Costa Rica doesn't require a COVID test, but the retreat center does. So I had to have a negative test, which I did. And I show up, like I've been traveling all day. I show up at 11:30 at night. to check in. And from the moment I arrived, and I won't go into every single detail, I'm already rambling, I think, but from the moment I arrived, I just felt so assaulted by the environment. You know, I couldn't even check in without having to wash my hands. Like the guy was like, sorry, you have to wash your hands before I can help you. And it really caught me off guard because I was really excited to be there. And I know Spanish, so I was speaking Spanish to him and he just cuts me off in English. You need to go wash your hands. And I just thought, okay, you could have been a little more polite about it. And I just felt shut down. Then I get to my room and the single that I was supposed to get, because I paid to upgrade, I didn't get. I was in a double room. And I was like, I'm so glad that this lady who was so pushy to get my money, right? On the first video, I talk about it being a commodity, to get my money, but didn't either A, let the retreat place know that I had upgraded, or B, the retreat place didn't care. Like, whatever. So there were a few more things. The biggest thing I had noticed energetically, and it really came full circle when I came home yesterday because my buddy was on the same flight routes and there were a couple of other girls that were as well coming back to Vegas. And it's over. I had a great week. I was excited to see my friend and we talked every day, by the way. We WhatsApped each other every day during the retreat. And I love my buddy. Like, he's one of these who just is so programmed to see the good in people and doesn't always see the reality of things. And here I am, this empath who like can't get past the reality of things most of the time. And so at the airport, you know, we were like, hey, you know, going home, like good trip, good week, like kind of sharing stories. And the other women who were on the same flight path, same treatment. And what was that treatment? Well, it was really interesting to me to put this into words, because even when I left the retreat center and went to another beach, I couldn't even quite, find the words to describe what I had experienced. But on the way home, I was really able to put it to words that crystallized for me, which is that there was no acknowledgement to my existence at all. The people at the retreat place, like, if you've ever been ignored, yeah, I was ignored by a huge group of people. And on the way home, I even tried to go out of my way to talk to these women, because now we're flying home together, right? And the same thing, like zero eye contact. One girl reluctantly answered my question, and the bitch in me really wanted to be a bitch, but I didn't, out of respect for my buddy. I just held my tongue. But it was very apparent to me that that a huge part of the rejection I felt at the retreat center came as a result of the fact that my existence wasn't even acknowledged. And the only time it was acknowledged by the staff was to criticize me or to remind me that I wasn't in line with COVID protocol. And even when my buddy introduced me to his retreat partner, she did one of these like, oh, I'm so busy, but and she kind of like, well, I'm glad you made it. And she pulled away and then she did like a fist bump. And I'm like, I just paid all this money to be your student for the week, and that's how you push up. Sorry, baby. That's how you acknowledge like a hello. That's it. That's all I get is a little like. So needless to say, I couldn't reconcile the rejection I was experiencing deep down inside, and the attacks, like the energetic attacks of like, where am I going to acknowledge you to criticize you? Where am I going to acknowledge you to remind you that you're not doing what you're supposed to? Where am I going to acknowledge you to let you know that we don't approve? So that was my experience. And it's unfortunate, the whole yoga community has really, like I said in my first video, it has been shifting. It's like an extension of what's going on globally. This idea of like, here's the narrative, don't question it. That this is what you're supposed to believe. Don't think for yourself. And what I experienced down there really was just, as I said, an extension of all of that. There was nothing humane about the experience, and it deeply saddened me to recognize that like these so-called yoga practitioners don't know the first thing about humanity. And when I left, I went, it was amazing. Like I really, really just let my inner child kind of take over because she was so upset. Like when you experience that kind of trigger, you know it comes from a very deep place inside you, and it's the child who is responding, not the adult. I was sobbing, you know, when I left the retreat center. I felt just awful. I felt so rejected. And so it was the child that was feeling the rejection, right? And so I let her kind of just take over. And I wasn't very logical about my decisions. I just left. And I ended up at this perfect place. I went to the next beach town over. So I was in Samara, which by the way, is like the second most expensive place in Costa Rica. I found out after I left. And I went to Samara, which is just this quaint little beach town. Like, and beach towns are so chill, right? Surf town. Surf towns are so chill. And I spent the week learning to surf, and the bed and breakfast that I found was Italian owned. And I thought, this couldn't have been more perfect in terms of what I needed for this week, right? So I spent the week interacting with Italians speaking Spanish and Italian. It was wonderful. I got to blend the two, and they completely understood me, and learned to surf, and really just made it about what I needed to ground myself, you know, spending time in that water, spending time on that beach, getting back to nature, horseback riding, riding my bicycle through the jungle. Like it was really about that connection. Again, connection to earth, connection to spirit, connection to myself. And I can't believe how disconnected those people were at that place. And I'm not knocking my buddy at all. I love him, and I really hope that he finds the courage to do deeper, more connected events down the road where like he's in charge completely. But the people in Samara, like everywhere I went, I was acknowledged energetically by the children, by the guys, by the women. It didn't matter who it was. There was an acknowledgement, right? Before you start a conversation, there's like this unspoken energetic acknowledgement that occurs right between you and someone else to lean in or not. And everyone there acknowledged me, and I acknowledged them in return. And it was very eye-opening to me, that energetic acknowledgement, and how those yoga people didn't have it. You know, I've heard people use the expression like they're pretentious, they're elitist. I have to agree. I don't know where this kind of thing formulated, but there was like, everyone had a chip on their shoulder. Except my buddy. I mean, honestly, like, except him. Everyone else had like a chip on their shoulder there. And again, I don't know where the humanity went. That's not yoga to me. I felt like being able to adapt and make a really quick decision to abort and to have to just do something else in a foreign country, to make the most of it, to practice Santosha, right? Like, I'm going to be content anyway. Like, this might have happened, but I'm going to do what's in my control, totally in my control, right? Because surrender is not this thing where we submit to the elements and go, oh, well, this was a shitty experience, and therefore I must, you know, I must just deal with the experience. No, it's like, do I have the option to leave? Yeah, I'm gonna take it too. And I had a long talk with him, like more than once, you know, like this wasn't about him. I made that very clear. Like, you're good. but I don't fit into this environment. And so to be able to make that decision and do what I needed to do what I could do within my realm of control to be happy anyway, and to be present and all those things, like, to me, that is more yogic than like stuffing my feelings down and dealing with an environment that was so hostile to me all week. It's interesting too, because like I had a conversation with my cousin while I was down there, and she's been struggling with the fact that my uncle died right last year, and there's just a lot going on. Her health, everything's up in the air, right? And we were talking, and she's like, this doctor says this, and this doctor says that, and my friend says this, and my husband says that. And I said, what does your voice say? Like, what does your inner voice say? And she didn't have an answer, right? Like, when it comes to that practice of yoga, it's not about following the trends. It's not about following the narrative. It's not about complying with the rules. And I'm getting emotional when talking about this. Like, practicing yoga means to connect with yourself. It means to connect with yourself. And it means to honor yourself. Namaste means that the divine in me honors the divine in you. You cannot honor the divine in someone else if you're not honoring the divine in you. If you are betraying yourself in any given moment, you cannot, in truthfulness and in real diplomacy, practice compassion or love for someone else. You are a liar. And I know that I went against the grain. And I know that a lot of people have opinions of me for doing that, and I don't care. I am going to remain loyal to my connection with myself, and thus my connection to God. It is not about anybody else. And I got exactly what I needed this week. I surrendered my expectations and allowed myself to just be taken again where I needed to go for myself. I didn't know when I was changing plans if things were going to work out even then, right? I had to take a chance. But I had flown all the way there, and I was not going to go home. I made the best of it. And I really could have, even in that moment where I felt rejected by the environment and assaulted by the environment, it would have been real easy for me to go, see, this is what happens. See, right? And to play into the wound that my inner child was crying over in that moment. It would have been real easy to play into that wound, become more defensive, and then go home and go, yeah, see, this is why I don't do these things. But instead, I chose to, again, just honor myself. It was funny, at the retreat center, I literally had a moment where, like, I said to myself, no, we're getting you out of here. We're leaving. It was like I had to be the adult to myself in that moment, right? and yet, when I switched gears and did something else, my God, was the experience so perfect and so incredible. And I was acknowledged, right? I was acknowledged by my surroundings because I acknowledged myself and what I needed in that moment. And per the law of attraction, my environment reflected that. So I don't know what else to say. The yoga community and what it has morphed into these days is really just a religion. It's turned into, again, just like these boxes of like, this is who you need to be, this is how you need to act, this is how you need to look, this is how you need to eat. You know, there's just these rules of conformity. It takes courage to explore who you are and honor that. It takes courage to think for yourself. It takes courage to say, no, this doesn't work for me. It takes courage to create a boundary and know where you stand in relation to things around you and people around you. It takes courage. So the yoga community isn't teaching courage anymore. It's not teaching self-exploration. It's not teaching svadhyaya, which is self-reflection, right? Projection has become the game. There's no self-reflection. It's all projection. And there are still, I know, a few good apples on a bad tree, but most of what is out there is hype, and it's not authentic. So thank you for listening to me, and for hearing me. If you've watched this video, if you watched any of my videos, thank you for taking the time to acknowledge me, so that excuse me, so I appreciate that. It means a lot to me, and I acknowledge you for that. So namaste, guys. The divine in me does, in fact, recognize and honor the divine in you. Have a good one. Bye.